The crowd was screaming, chaos erupting all around him, but he stood there, calm, unshaken, like he had seen this moment coming long before anyone else. Then the first shot rang out, then the second. And in that instant, the rally stopped being a rally. It became something else, something no one was ready for. The Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta was packed beyond capacity, a writhing sea of red hats, flags, and homemade banners. The air felt electric, like a summer storm was about to crack the sky in half. People weren't just waiting, they were starving, for action, for confirmation, for the moment he would step onto that stage and say the words they had been dying to hear. Somewhere near the front row, Rick Jenkins, a 38-year-old cameraman for WNN News, was sweating under the heat of the stage lights and the weight of his camera rig. He'd been covering political rallies for years, long enough to become numb to the theater of it all. He had seen crowds morph into mobs, seen grown men cry over slogans, seen leaders drink in their followers' energy, like vampires feeding on fresh blood. But tonight was different. Rick's fingers adjusted the focus, the lens sweeping across the frothing mass of people. Some were waving their banners so aggressively they smacked the people behind them. Others held up phones, live streaming the moment to thousands, maybe millions across the country. Every single face in that stadium was locked onto one thing: the empty podium at the center of the stage. Behind Rick, Jason, his sound guy, perpetually greasy, perpetually chewing on something that smelled like burnt rubber, leaned in. "Dude, he's late. Something's off." Rick barely flinched. "Maybe he's fixing his hairpiece," he muttered, lazily adjusting his focus. Jason snorted. "Nah, man. This is the hottest ticket in town. The whole world is watching. No way he'd stall on purpose." Then the chanting started. "Trump, Trump, Trump." It began in waves, rolling through the stadium like an avalanche. At first, just a handful of voices, then a few hundred, then thousands. And then, boom! Floodlights exploded to life, illuminating the stage like a nuclear blast. The subwoofers blasted a deep, earth-shaking thud, rattling the concrete beneath their feet. A violent ripple of energy surged through the crowd, and then he stepped out. Donald Trump. The reaction was immediate. The crowd went berserk. Hats flew in the air. People jumped on their seats, fists pumped toward the sky. Rick watched through his viewfinder, steady hands tracking every movement. Everything looked right, but something felt off. Jason nudged him. "Yo, look at his face." Rick adjusted the zoom. His stomach tightened. Trump looked wrong. The usual orange glow. Gone. Instead, his face was pale, almost ashen under the stage lights. His expression wasn't the usual cocky smirk. It was tense, sharp, focused, like a man who just received news that changed everything. "Dude, he looks like he's seen a ghost," Jason muttered. Rick stayed silent, camera locked on the podium. Trump reached it and gripped the edges like a man bracing against an earthquake. His knuckles turned white. Then he took a breath, and when he spoke, his voice sliced through the roaring crowd like a blade. "Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready to hear the truth?" The stadium detonated. The crowd erupted in a frenzy, deafening cheers, wild screaming, total hysteria. People were shaking each other, shouting so hard their faces turned red, and then he started talking. 30 seconds in, every single jaw in that stadium hit the floor. The energy in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium had been a roaring wildfire just seconds ago. Now, dead silence. Every single person, from the front row VIPs to the nosebleed seats, just stood there, their mouths slightly open, their eyes locked onto the stage. The same people who had been chanting his name like a battle cry were now standing like they had just seen a ghost. And then, "It's all lies." The words slammed through the silence like a sledgehammer. Trump's fist hit the podium with a force that shook the mic stand. Somewhere above, a light fixture rattled, and dust floated down from the rafters. "The polls are fake. The media is lying to you. You're being played." A low murmur rippled through the stadium. It started as whispers, nervous glances between strangers, heads turning left and right. But then someone cheered, one voice, then another. And then just like that, the moment of hesitation shattered. A man in a worn-out military jacket threw his fist in the air and shouted, "Tell him, Mr. President." A woman in a MAGA hat clapped so hard her hands turned red. Another man, bald, sunburnt, wearing an American flag t-shirt that barely fit over his stomach, looked like he was ready to swing on the first person who disagreed. But Rick felt something shift. His fingers trembled on the camera controls, but not from nerves. He had been covering politics for years, seen every kind of rally, every kind of speech, every kind of performative outrage. But this wasn't a campaign event anymore. This was something else. Trump suddenly threw a hand into the air, pointing at nothing. "They warned me. They told me to keep quiet, but I won't be silenced." The crowd surged forward. People shoved past one another, trying to get closer, trying to see what he was pointing at. The paranoia spread like a disease. "Did you hear that?" "Who's they?" "Oh my God, he knows something." Rick felt a hard shove on his shoulder. Some guy with sweat dripping down his face leaned in, his breath hot and fast. "You getting this on tape?" Rick nodded, but in reality, he wasn't sure he even wanted to. He panned the camera across the crowd, zoomed in on the faces, on the expressions that made his stomach tighten. A woman, tears streaming down her cheeks, clutched her MAGA hat like it was a lifeline. A man in a camo vest clenched his fists, eyes darting around like he was looking for someone or something to fight. The entire stadium buzzed with unfiltered tension, a powder keg waiting for a spark. "They have a plan." Trump's voice boomed over the speakers, sharp, cutting, undeniable. "They want to erase you. They want to make you disappear." The stadium erupted. Thunderous applause, deafening cheers. Rick's lens zeroed in on Trump's face. And for the first time, he felt real fear. Because this wasn't just a rally anymore. This wasn't politics. This was a movement, a cult, and they had just been given an enemy. Then, a crack, a loud, sickening crunch from somewhere behind the stage. The sound cut through the chaos like a gunshot. The crowd hesitated. Heads snapped toward the source. Trump froze mid-sentence, his hands still raised. Rick instinctively zoomed in, catching the flicker of something in Trump's eyes. It wasn't fear, it was recognition, and then it looks like they're here for me. Silence. And then screams. The stadium exploded into chaos. Screams ripped through the air. People shoved, tripped, scrambled over seats like animals caught in a wildfire. Some bolted for the exits, desperate to escape. Others surged toward the stage, eyes locked onto Trump, as if getting closer would somehow make sense of what was happening. Rick clutched his camera like a lifeline, hands clammy, breath short. His gut screamed at him to get the hell out, but his instincts, the ones that had kept him alive in this industry, said otherwise. Whatever this was, it was history in real time. If he survived, this footage wouldn't just make headlines, it would define them. On stage, Trump hadn't moved. His face was blank, not shocked, not afraid, just still. "They're here." His voice was steady, almost calm, like he had been expecting this moment all along. "They want me gone." And then, bang! The sound ripped through the stadium like a lightning strike, sharp and unforgiving. For a split second, everything froze, like the entire crowd had taken a collective breath. Then, pandemonium. "Sniper!" The word sent shockwaves through the stadium. People lost it. Bodies slammed into each other. Elbows and fists flew as people fought their way out. Someone fell hard, cracking their skull against a seat. A woman in a red t-shirt was knocked down, her terrified screams swallowed by the stampede. She didn't get up. Rick's camera whipped up backward, his lens scanning the balconies, searching. And then he saw him. A figure. Dressed in all black, face obscured, stance calculated. And in his hands, a rifle. Rick's stomach turned to ice. "He's gonna take him out." Someone's voice cut through the hysteria, but it was drowned out as bang, a second shot. Rick's camera caught it in real time. Trump flinched. The bullet missed by inches, shattering part of the podium instead. Splinters flew. The sound of cracking wood echoed through the speakers. Secret Service moved fast. Agents lunged onto the stage, shielding him with their bodies, barking orders into earpieces. But Trump Trump didn't move, not an inch. Instead, he raised a fist, and then he yelled, "Do not be afraid!" His voice boomed over the chaos, slicing through the panic like a knife. This is just the beginning. The crowd lost their minds. Some screamed in terror, some screamed in fury, some screamed in pure exhilaration. And Rick kept filming, because whatever this was, it wasn't a rally anymore. It was something else, something far, far worse. If you were in his place, what would you do? How would you react in a moment like this? Would you stand your ground, try to escape, or do something entirely different? We want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts in the comments. What do you think really happened that night? Have you ever experienced or witnessed a situation that spiraled out of control like this? Maybe you or someone you know has faced moments where everything changed in an instant. Hit that like button if this story made you think. Share it if you believe these topics need to be discussed. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that challenge perspectives and dive deep into the unexpected. This story wasn't created just for entertainment. It was made to shed light on important issues, to make people think, to spark conversations, and ultimately, to push for a better world. Your voice matters.